Slavery in America, the albatross around our necks. Well, let's investigate that a little bit. Slavery, who invented it? Was it the Americans? No. I think that most of you are aware that slavery has been a part of virtually every civilization in every country since the dawn of civilization. I mean, who do you think built the pyramids of Egypt? Aliens? According to noted historian John Steele Gordon, as much as 1/3 of the ancient world were slaves. That means if you have a family of 9 people, 3 of you? Ha! And where do you think that the word slave comes from? From the word Slav, from the people in southern and to eastern Europe, the Slavic people who were enslaved by the Arabs, thus giving rise to the word. Native Americans had slaves. Asians had slaves. Europeans were slaves and had slaves. And yes, an approximation of 10 to 12 million people were brought across the oceans in the transatlantic slave trade to Portugal, to the Caribbean, to the Americas. And who sold these people? It was the Africans. In fact, Voltaire stated that the only thing worse than the Americans and the Portuguese did to the African people, to the slaves, were their fellow Africans who captured and sold them into slavery to the Europeans for a pittance. I've been in the slave dungeons of Ghana where such people were kept. When you hear about the stories of what they endured, both from those who caught them on the African continent, their fellow black men, and how they were brought across the oceans, and how many of them died, it is harrowing, and it is evil. And let's take a look at that compared to the number that were brought and sold into slavery by black tribes in Africa to the Arabs. 50% more went to Arabia. But then it doesn't make sense though, right? Because you see so many people of African descent in the Caribbean, in Brazil, in America. Why aren't there so many more in Arabia? Because all the slaves were castrated, thus unable to reproduce. 50% more castration. And today, the word abid, it means both slave in Arabic as well as black. That's right. Black and slave are identical in the word abid. And do you want to compare the plight of the slaves during these times to the plight of, say, an Englishman basically being enslaved in a mine and dying earlier than a plantation slave? Hardly makes for the case for white privilege. And who actually made slavery illegal? It was the West. In 1833, Britain passed the Slavery Abolition Act, becoming the first country in history to do so. And then they spent much treasure and human life boarding ships on the high seas, seizing slaves that were being transported to Portugal, to America even, because it was illegal under the crown, and they enforced it to the tune of great amount of treasure, great numbers of sailors' lives lost in the fight in order to prevent slavery from continuing. And in America, 300,000 Union soldiers lost their lives fighting in the Civil War in order to abolish slavery, which finally was done and accomplished in 1865. You know who illegalized slavery 100 years later in the year 1962? Saudi Arabia and Yemen. And people praise Islam as this great four-sided religion. But the problem is that the Prophet Muhammad had slaves. So throughout much of the Arab world, it still exists. ISIS brought back slavery because good old Muhammad, may his soul rest in peace, also had slaves, and they wanted to emulate him. It exists throughout the world. There is an estimated 40 million slaves alive today. Let that number sink into you, all you Americans who denigrate America. 40 million. And where are they? In non-white countries. Slavery in India, 8 million slaves. In China, 4 million. Who do you think produces all those products on the cheap that you buy in Walmart? Maybe your iPhone. Hey, how about those Uyghur Muslims in China that are essentially slaves and being sterilized? Pakistan, Nigeria, the Congo, North Korea. Slavery is rampant still today. You know where it doesn't exist? America. If we got wind of somebody holding a slave, the authorities would set upon them like lightning in a storm. So to those of you who want to denigrate America and claim that slavery was the institution upon which America was founded, and you don't take into account the rest of the world, you don't take into account that it was Britain and America that were amongst the first to make slavery illegal, and at great expense and life, abolish it and enforce it. And the world is imperfect. And America is the moral conscience of our planet today. It didn't arise from China. It didn't arise from the Philippines. It didn't arrive from Africa for this notion to be abolished of slavery. And in case any of y'all are feeling a bit nostalgic, you can go straight to the markets of Tripoli, Libya, and purchase your own black sub-Saharan abid. And hopefully y'all know what that word means now after watching this here video. Thumb up this video, subscribe, and hit the all notification bell if you do. Cheers and have a fantastic day.